Greetings, and welcome to NCOPE Tracker, an overview for residents, directors, and mentors. Presentation overview. During this brief presentation, we'll review the purpose of clinical hour tracking, demonstrate the login process, review data entry guidelines, demonstrate compliance for the mentor and director users, demonstrate report functionality, demonstrate how to access forms, and finally, demonstrate how to get help. Clinical education is incredibly important for both students as well as residents. There's a need to provide real-world experiences. To that end, we also need to document those experiences to demonstrate the educational value. Clinical encounter tracking provides residents, mentors, directors, and the NCOPE staff a snapshot of patient-level exposures and the relative level of resident engagement. It can also inform residency sites about potential areas where improvement can occur during the residency as well as afterwards. It also creates a portfolio of experiences that can be shared with future employers. And last but not least, it demonstrates that the NCOPE residency requirements have been met. It is important to recognize that NCOPE is a data-driven organization. As an educational accreditor, NCOPE protects the public by ensuring that there is data to demonstrate students and residents are competent and have appropriate experiences to meet the needs of patients. The public simply needs more than a verbal assurance from a resident, mentor, director, or student claiming that we had a good experience, it should be done now. While there's no shortage of data available to the NCOPE staff, the most important thing is the quality of the data and leveraging it in a meaningful way. Please remember, data quality begins with the end users, students, residents, mentors, and directors entering and contributing data. NCOPE needs students and mentors to consistently and accurately enter information into the systems. Otherwise, we have the challenge of what's known as GIGO, garbage in equals garbage out. We need to take out the trash and have meaningful data entered into NCOPE Tracker. The NCOPE Tracker system supports desktops and laptops running current operating systems, such as Windows 10, OS X on Apple devices, Chrome OS, or even Linux. It also supports mobile devices running either the latest versions of Android or iOS, what's used on the iPad and iPhone. Tablets and smartphones are both supported by NCOPE Tracker. Do keep in mind, though, that there is no app to install on your mobile devices. You'll just use your preferred browser, typically Safari on Apple devices and Chrome on Android-based devices. In order to access NCOPE Tracker, residents will log in by visiting ncopetracker.org. If you enter www beforehand, don't worry, you'll still get to the site that you need. Mentors can log in by visiting ncopetracker.org/admin. Again, if you like to add www, that's fine. Let's take a look at a modern web browser and demonstrate this process. When you enter ncopetracker.org into your browser, you'll be taken to the resident login page. In the event that you entered ncopetracker.org and you're a mentor, or you have a supervisor or administrator level account, well, you're going to be able to still access your login. You can clearly see if you are a mentor, supervisor, or administrator, log in here. Go ahead and click the button, and you'll see at the top it will now say Mentors and Supervisors Login. If you're a resident and you happen to stumble across an open browser window for NCOPE Tracker and try to log in here, it's okay. You can still access the resident login by clicking If you're a resident, log in here, and it will bring you back to the resident login screen. One thing to consider is forgetting your password. It's not uncommon to forget your password from time to time. In order to receive your password, step 1, make sure you're at the screen that identifies the correct user type. Residents can reset their password from resident login, and mentors can reset their password from the mentor login. Let's go ahead and demonstrate how a mentor would do that by first going to the mentor login screen and then clicking Forgot Your Password. You may then enter your email address and click the Send Password link. And a link will be sent to you within typically 60 minutes. Please understand that your system's email filter may block this message. This message will be coming from the email address ncopetracker@ncope.org. Let's take a moment and discuss entering clinical experience data for residents. As I've already mentioned, data quality begins with the end users, and residents have 2 potential mechanisms to input patient encounter data. Manual data entry. This will be required for the vast majority of residents. The second mechanism is data upload, and this function uses exports from an EMR system in Excel format. You will need to communicate with your EMR vendor to determine if it can generate reports compatible with NCOPE Tracker. NCOPE Tracker works with Excel format files that are in the correct and optimal format, and EMR vendors are welcome to contact our software engineers to receive that basic information. At the time of this recording, both OPE as well as NextGen have created tools to export to the required Excel format. One thing to keep in mind, though, is if you are using NextGen or the OPE platforms, you are still responsible as a resident to verify that all documentation requirements are being addressed within the data files being uploaded. Just because you're using the EMR system doesn't mean that you're using the EMR system correctly or outputting the data correctly. Please double check and verify that the information being uploaded is accurate and complete in nature. NCOPE reserves the right to disable a resident's ability to upload data if an audit reveals inaccurate or incomplete data sets being uploaded. Make sure that you work with your EMR vendor and their support team to verify that you are exporting the data correctly. NCOPE cannot support third-party systems. We are not the software manufacturer for OPE, nor the software manufacturer for NextGen, or any other platform, such as Nimble, or Brightree, or Medflex. When entering data into NCOPE Tracker, clinical experience data has a requirement that all fields be populated with the exception of documenting goals and outcomes. The reason these 2 fields are not requirements is they are not always used in all clinical encounters. There may be follow-up visits where this is not explicitly defined. Do keep in mind that all other fields are required. On that note, if you are entering a clinical encounter and you happen to forget how many years old the patient is, for example, you may leave that field blank initially and then edit it later on. We'll demonstrate how to do that in just a moment. Keep in mind that your clinical encounter logs entered into NCOPE Tracker are designed to provide a comprehensive experience for the resident, not just a sample or a snapshot. All clinical cases greater than or equal to 15 minutes should be logged for the entire duration of the residency. Even if the resident has been deemed competent for AFOs during their 2nd quarter, for example, they must continue to log all AFO encounters greater than or equal to 15 minutes for the balance of their residency. Also, please be certain to log cases on a regular basis to maintain accuracy. We recommend, at minimum, weekly entry of data, whether you're using the upload function or manual data entry. You should never go more than 2 weeks without entering your cases. The NCOPE tracker system may be set to prevent retroactive data entry for more than 2 weeks ago. If this is the case, and you failed to document that activities occurred in residency, it may result in an extension of the residency program duration. Also keep in mind that these logs demonstrate completion of the residency. For example, you may have a scenario where you've completed the prosthetic residency, 365 days have passed, the mentor has submitted all evaluation forms and documented the resident complete for all aspects of patient care, including upper limb prosthetic management. Once all of these forms are submitted, the NCOPE staff will verify and audit the documentation. If the resident doesn't have independent upper limb prosthetic encounters clearly documented, the residency is not complete. Even if the mentor has deemed the resident competent, based upon the information the NCOPE staff has available, the resident has never seen an upper limb case if we cannot go through your records and verify this information. We'll show you how to go through and view previous case entries in the system in just a moment. For demonstration purposes, I've logged in as an example resident. The first screen that residents will typically be greeted with states Upload Data File. This data file is only relevant for the entry of clinical encounter data if you are using an EMR platform that supports export in the format acceptable to NCOPE Tracker. Please don't attempt to upload PDFs, PowerPoint files, or any other documentation required throughout the residency using Upload Data File. That functionality will be used through the Forms tools, which I'll show you in just a moment. To enter clinical encounters, the vast majority of residents will go to Create or Edit Dataset. As mentioned earlier, all fields are required with the exception of outcome measures and goals documented. These are the final two fields listed when you view this, whether on a computer screen or your smart device. By default, the system will automatically enter today's date for the appointment date. So if you're entering your cases every day, you will never have to change this. On that note, if you do need to retroactively enter information, say I wanted to enter information 2 days prior, clicking on the calendar will allow you to enter that. When entering patient age, only whole numeric values are acceptable. If you're working with infants, for example, at a facility that provides a large amount of plagiocephaly helmets, these individuals are often mentioned in age with months. Parents will say, "My child's 5 months old." The system, again, wants data entry in whole numbers for years. If the child is not 1 year old yet, please enter 0 years of age. You'll be prompted for gender, and at this time, it only has male and female entries, largely for compatibility purposes with EMRs. I recognize that there are other self-identified genders as well. We'll go ahead and select a male and work through the process of identifying a case for a child with plagiocephaly. Plagiocephaly helmets are orthotic in nature. They are for cranial applications. It will not prompt you for a side in cranial applications. However, for lower limb and upper limb, you'll be prompted for left, right, or bilateral. We will then select cranial remolding orthosis and our appointment type. Under appointment types, this is designed to be discrete with a single selection. For example, you may have an appointment where you do an initial evaluation on our child with plagiocephaly, for example, and also perform measurement and scanning. Those are 3 distinct appointment types within the system. You need to decide which one you wish to log. In this case, let's imagine we spend 60 minutes with the family. You spend the initial 45 minutes performing an evaluation. You then spend 10 minutes doing measurements and 5 minutes doing scanning. The majority of the time was spent performing the evaluation, so select evaluation in this case. For your diagnosis code, if you know the ICD-10 code, you'll have the ability to enter the code using the appropriate numeric and letter set. You may also search for the code as well. When I type in the word plagiocephaly, you'll see that it becomes available. But if you don't type the entire word, it will not be listed. We can then see that it automatically populates the letter and numeric combination. Alternatively, you can enter the letter and numeric combination like so, and it will suggest plagiocephaly. Engagement level is a level that the resident was involved in the appointment. If the resident spent the 60-minute appointment observing the vast majority of the time, select Observe. If the resident was helping the practitioner the majority of the time, select Assist. And if the resident was independently performing the tasks, even if the mentor was physically present and supervising, select Independent. Finally, outcome measures performed and goals documented doesn't need to be selected, but in this case, we'll say yes, we took baseline measurements and goals were defined as well. Go ahead and click your Save button. And when you do this, you'll see that it has been cleared for another case entry. As I mentioned earlier, if you wish to edit a case entry, you may do so. For example, click the button Open View/Edit. It's on the exact same page where we just created our new case for the child with plagiocephaly. When we select that, it will automatically list all cases that have been entered. Total number of records is at 129. Your most recent case will automatically be listed at the top. So for example, let's say that we wish to change some information. I'm going to select the pencil below Edit. And we may recognize this wasn't an initial evaluation. This was actually a follow-up appointment. I can change my appointment type and click Update. And you'll notice that the color of the pencil is changed to red. This reflects that there has been a manual change. Please note, if you're using the next-gen system, you will need to manually change your appointment types more often than not, because the appointment type options within the EMR system do not match the appointment types that were previously discussed with manual data entry. I also mentioned that the NCOPE staff at the conclusion of residency will audit the records to verify that there is appropriate documentation in place. Let's go ahead and see if our hypothetical resident has seen ankle-foot orthoses. To do that, click Filter. For our values, we're going to go ahead and choose Device Type and scroll down to select ankle-foot orthosis. We'll go ahead and click our search button, and we can see that our resident has 22 AFO encounters documented within the system. If we scroll to the bottom, you can see that all of the columns become visible. The appointment type and the level of engagement is listed as well. We will not demonstrate how to upload data into the system using this video, as that process relies upon successful export from your EMR platform first. Those individual videos can be viewed by selecting the appropriate help menu. The exclamation point located at the top right-hand side has multiple sections available: frequently asked questions and video tutorials. When you select video tutorials, you'll see there are multiple tutorial videos that have already been created for you to work through common day-to-day tasks and operations. Furthermore, our FAQs are updated on a routine basis. You'll see that we have a table of contents broken down with information for mentors versus residents and even data entry requirement. Clicking on the text for a heading will automatically advance, and we've also embedded the videos that relate to the specific topics at hand in the event that a video demonstration is warranted. Where it says submit a ticket, this is to request and identify that there is a software issue or failure. When you click submit a ticket and identify that you require help with one of these areas, this is not emailed to an NCOPE staff member. It is sent to a software programmer who in no way knows the NCOPE residency standards, nor can they answer any questions regarding the actual NCOPE requirements, policies, or procedures that relate to residency or any level of education. These individuals are trained in the development and engineering of user interfaces and databases. So please keep in mind, your question should relate to when a user interface or database is not doing what it's supposed to. Within the resident interface, the other aspects I would like to show you are generate report. The paper airplane is universal within NCOPE Tracker. If you see this icon, whether you're a resident or a mentor, that will take you to the report. There are 4 principal reports that are available. More often than not, you'll find that the executive report best meets the needs of the resident. There's also a full report, which contains multiple pages of details, as well as engagement reporting. Please understand that engagement reporting cannot occur unless 30 unique days of patient experience have been logged into the system. If you do try to run one of these engagement over time reports and nothing is returned, this is due to lacking 30 consecutive days of patient information. Let's run an executive report. We need to select the date range that we would like to report. You will need to do this on a quarterly basis at minimum for the sample resident. Let's go ahead now and back up to when Rachel began her residency during 2019. We'll run a comprehensive report for January 1st all the way through yesterday. This type of report is useful if you wish to capture everything that has occurred. In the notes field, you can identify the purpose, entire residency. You may also see notes from the staff, such as NCOPE staff member audit, or even your residency supervisors can enter notes saying, run before meeting to discuss cases with resident. When I click the send button, it takes just a moment to generate the report. You'll see pending in red until the report is complete. But once it's done, you can select the down arrow to download the PDF. We can then click on the PDF and it will provide us with the report information. We'll discuss and dissect reports a little bit more in just a moment. The final menu option that I have yet to show the team is resident forms. This graphical representation of a form, it looks a bit like a note card, can be selected. We can then see all of the forms that are available to the resident. Please note that these are timed and relate to where you are at in your residency. For example, if your residency ended 45 days ago, but you just haven't had time to enter your forms, they will be gone. You need to submit your forms within 30 days of the timeline when they're expected. Your final evaluation of the residency program, if you're a resident, you should submit that on your last day of residency. But you'll have up to 30 days afterwards to still submit that form. If you've waited more than 30 days, the only way to make these forms visible again is to contact the NCOPE staff. The NCOPE staff cannot be contacted through the help button. Remember, that's how you email engineers and software programmers. NCOPE's website is the best place to get contact information. When completing your forms, you can view any form and complete it by simply selecting View Form. Once I select that, you will see information about the form itself, the relevant NCOPE residency standards, and also a requirement to agree to the terms of use. These forms are designed to automatically populate information from NCOPE Tracker when possible. Although I can tell you, the organization name will never be populated. This is intentional because we recognize that many clinics have multiple physical locations. So you could identify that I am working at the organization named NCOPE, and in particular, their Alexandria King Street location. This allows you to be more specific than simply entering NCOPE or Hanger Clinic. The tool will automatically enter the city and state based on your current physical location or the location that your internet service provider thinks you live in. So if you're using a virtual private network, it will be tied to wherever that VPN server happens to be. I'm going to go ahead and enter Alexandria, Virginia. You will then be required to enter the quarter that you are completing this for, as these documents are completed on a quarterly basis. The forms are designed to automatically prompt you for relevant information throughout. Please understand that a form is not submitted until you can view a confirmation screen. I'm going to go ahead and enter the data so that you can view the confirmation screen. When completing a form, you will always see a final page that states, Form Submitted. This is your opportunity to download a PDF copy for your records. Please note that NCOPE Tracker nor the NCOPE staff keep copies of completed form PDFs for residents or mentors. Please click Download PDF version at this time so that you can retain a copy. The tool will also send you an email with the PDF attached. Our email service has a 99.9% deliverability rate. What that means is it reaches your email server 99.9% of the time. If you don't get the email, the vast majority of the time, this is due to your email server's filtering and configuration. You will need to contact your email hosting company, whether it be Microsoft or a corporate account through your employer, in order to determine why email routing troubles persist. It is also important to recognize that the submission of the form does not mean that the NCOPE staff has already received, reviewed, and approved it. All forms submitted by residents, mentors, and directors are manually reviewed by an NCOPE staff member. It is important that you allow a minimum of 2 business days for them to engage in the review process. Then the staff member who reviews your document will append your record and document completion appropriately. Now that we've had an opportunity to explore the resident NCOPE Tracker interface, let's take a moment and discuss some of the applications for mentors and directors. Keep in mind that there's also some overlapping functionality, and we'll go ahead and give a demo of that in just a moment. Mentors and directors will be responsible for completing the quarterly and final evaluation of the resident, clinical competency forms, of which there are 7 orthotic and 5 prosthetic competencies, technical competency form, And finally, the evaluation of the O&P educational program. Within modern learning frameworks and the NCOPE residency, the way that we communicate ability to a resident is incredibly important. With the previous tool, Typhon, we had to have two distinct rungs: competent, which is the goal of residency, or not competent. But there's a big span that occurs before competency is achieved. One way to think about it is adding rungs to the respective ladder. We now have beginner, developing, advancing, competent, and proficient. This framework works alongside the sequencing concepts that are discussed in the online residency mentor and director development course and the NCOPE approved clinical mentor training. Let's look into what some of these definitions mean. As we work to define these particular levels of ability, these definitions and language have been adopted from the American College of Graduate Medical Education, what they use to document resident physicians. Beginner is when the resident has no experience with a task and usually has difficulty with the skill or behavior, requiring basic information, direction, and close supervision. Beginner is pretty common for less frequent clinical populations. For example, very few prosthetic and orthotic students have the opportunity to take an impression for a hip disarticulation prosthesis in school. Developing. The resident has limited experience and may continue to have some difficulty with the skill or behavior, requiring coaching, reinforcement, and close supervision. This may be something that the resident has done once or twice in the past, but they have yet to develop a level of aptitude that they can reproduce it consistently. Advancing. The resident has additional experience and often performs a skill or behavior effectively in common situations, but requires continued coaching, reinforcement, and supervision. They're not quite competent, but most of the time they can achieve a consistent and desirable outcome. And since we haven't achieved that level of competent yet, the coaching, reinforcement, and supervision is in place. Competent is when the resident virtually always performs a skill or behavior effectively, but requires assistance or guidance in unusual circumstances. Competent is when a prosthetic resident can take a set of measurements and a cast for a transfemoral prosthesis for a patient with a, let's say, 8-inch ischial tuberosity to distal end residual limb that's volumetrically stable. This is a relatively straightforward case. They will still require assistance on more challenging behaviors, such as taking a transfemoral type impression on a patient that had PFFD and a Symes ablation, not a typical transfemoral fitting. On that note, competence is not the end of the road. A lot of mentors I've interacted with said, well, I'm competent. And I responded, probably not. You're likely well beyond competent. Mentors and directors are typically proficient, where they virtually always perform a skill or behavior effectively, even in unusual circumstances, or they've even achieved mastery, where without failure they always perform the skill or behavior effectively, even when faced with highly unusual circumstances. Keep in mind, the goal of residency is not these two levels. The goal of residency is competence. But the directors and mentors, well, very often you're at the level of proficient or mastery. Let's jump into the mentors and directors interface for NCOPE Tracker. When you sign in as a mentor, you notice that the interface looks a little bit different than the resident interface. You'll be presented with the number of residents currently assigned to you, but there are some common factors. Your help or information button up here provides access to the same menu items, frequently asked questions, and video tutorials. There may even be additional video tutorials available for the mentors and directors, as there are certain forms and processes that the residents are not going to complete. But similar to the resident interface, where it says submit a ticket, please recognize that when you do submit a ticket, trouble tickets are for reporting software problems. So if you wish to contact the engineers and developers behind NCOPE Tracker, please submit a trouble ticket if the software is broken. If you have a question about how to administer a residency program or NCOPE policy and procedure, that's best done through the NCOPE website. Simply go to ncope.org/contact, and you can send us an email, give us a call, and we'd be happy to help you out. The other common point is you'll see your name is listed at the top right corner, and if you click on your name, you'll be able to view as well as edit your profile. So if you wish to go by Christopher instead of Chris, for example, in my case, I can do that by clicking Profile and changing. You may also change your email address from this window as well. You can even upload a profile image, although by default, you'll get this not so smiley gray face listed. On that note, the menu is otherwise sparse because most of your navigation exists on the left-hand side. Let's click Residents. When you do that, you'll be presented with a volume of useful information. You'll see the residents that are currently assigned. You'll recall at the dashboard it said 1 resident. You'll see some familiar icons. That paper airplane lets you generate reports, for example, just as with the residents. If we click on our paper airplane, you'll see that you have the exact same interface as the resident. And as a matter of fact, you can even see the reports that were previously run by you or the resident or the NCOPE staff, and also download them if you'd like. So this is a good way to see, is my resident running their reports? Here's one way to find out. Keep in mind though, your resident can also see when you, the mentor or director, run reports as well. Let's go back to the residence screen. At the residence screen, there are a few other options that are available for you. You'll see the option to upload Excel. If you work in a setting where the resident is not allowed to obtain their own Excel data exports from EMR for uploading, the mentor does have that ability using this function. We will have separate tutorials to demonstrate this, as this is not common. We also have the ability to view data, which allows you to view the files that have been uploaded by the mentor, director, or resident. You'll see Compliance Overview, and a statement, the compliance threshold is 40 entries. The threshold is defined not for any NCOPE requirements. Remember, residents are supposed to log all cases greater than or equal to 15 minutes. 40 is simply the number where we can represent the patient's case entries as blue versus yellow versus red. That's actually the reason why we don't have green as the color, as 40 is not okay if the resident is in fact seeing 60 patients during a month or 80 patients during a month. What is okay is the resident enters all cases greater than or equal to 15 minutes. On that note, we can see that we have all colors represented. In June, our resident had the ability to see more than 40 cases, while in July, 0. Red means not a single case has been entered, and yellow is anywhere from 1 to 39 encounters entered. What if you wanted to actually see the encounters that were entered in, for example, June of 2020 where I'm yellow? Was it 1 case or was it 39 cases? You have that power. Let's go ahead and select the option below residents called Compliance Overview. And you'll be greeted by a view very similar to the one we're looking at now. But the main difference will be the presence of arrows. These are download links. So as we discussed, June of 2020, it looks like Rachel entered anywhere from 1 to 39 cases. And if you click on our download arrow, it will automatically download a file that is visible and viewable in Excel or other modern spreadsheet applications. And when that file opens up in Excel, we can see we have a single row. The plagiocephaly case that we demonstrated earlier on in this video is the only case that's been entered for the month of June. Let's take a look at form functionality. We've already demonstrated how forms work for the residents. The mentors can access the forms not from the top, but the left-hand side that says Forms Tool. Once we select Forms Tool, you'll have the opportunity to select a resident. If you only have one resident, only a single name will appear. If you have multiple residents, you will be able to select across multiple residents. Let's go ahead and select Evaluation of the Resident for Rachel Resident and click View Survey. You'll find that the perspective here is identical to what we saw within the Residents interface. Click your Proceed button to agree to the terms, and go ahead and click your Next button. As with the previous example with our residents, you do need to enter your organization name every time because we want to make sure that we specify a specific location or rotational site. In this case, we'll say this is NCOPE, Oak Park, Illinois. This data, city and state, will be automatically populated based upon where your internet service provider has identified your physical location. You also will then enter the particular quarter and click the Next button. Similar to the resident interface, you'll have the opportunity to be prompted when you're at the end of the form and also download a PDF copy for your records. Please remember, if you wish to have a PDF copy for your records, that is the best time to get it. The NCOPE staff nor the NCOPE Tracker application have a repository of previously completed form PDFs. So please, when you do get to the end of the form, it gives you the chance to download a copy for your records. Do so at that time. The final topic I'd like to cover is where to get help. As I've already demonstrated, there are some help resources built directly into NCOPE Tracker. But what if you don't yet have an NCOPE Tracker account? Or you're looking for other information that relates to the NCOPE residency process, policy, and procedure? Well, we can help with that. Let's go ahead and show you all the possible ways to get help. Within NCOPE Tracker, directions, tutorials, and instructions exist at the top right-hand side for both mentors as well as residents. When we click on the icon, we have FAQ documents that have information for both residents as well as mentors and directors, and also video tutorials that can be viewed directly within NCOPE Tracker. All you need to do is click the Watch Video button, and you'll have the opportunity to view the tutorials. Please note, these video tutorials that are embedded inside of NCOPE Tracker are designed to be no more than about 6 minutes in length. They're intentionally short and very focused to address a specific concern. I recognize that this presentation and overview can get a little bit long. All of NCOPE's videos and tutorials are shared utilizing the YouTube system. All you need to do is search for NCOPE Tracker to find videos relevant to using the NCOPE Tracker system. All of the video tutorials that are linked inside of Tracker can also be found here. At the very top, you'll see a playlist option with all videos, as well as topic-specific videos. One thing that you may want to bookmark, particularly if you're a resident, is how to compress PDF files for NCOPE Tracker upload. Those 120 megabyte PowerPoint slides, that's a little bit too big for NCOPE Tracker. We need to get all file uploads under 10 megabytes. That's a great video for you to remember. Another resource to get some help is the NCOPE website. The NCOPE website is actually being updated as I speak to ensure that we are providing additional value and resources. When you visit our website, you can either select residency/professional experiences, or if you scroll down, you'll see residency and professional experiences becomes available under both the Director, Mentor, and Administrators menu, as well as current residents. You'll see NCOPE Tracker. And when you select it, you'll be taken to the NCOPE Tracker resources for residents, in the case of our resident link, with our updated FAQ. So we can go here to, who's the mentor that I'm assigned to? And when we select that question, it will provide you with the information to the question that you seek. Plus, you can even go ahead and search for questions within our FAQ. So I can type in a word like tracker, for example, and it will identify, what do NCOPE Tracker forms look like? Why am I unable to log into Tracker? Why am I not receiving emails from NCOPE Tracker? So questions can be searched for as well. And it will automatically provide you with updated and valuable information. You can also just simply click on the little magnifying glass and search for NCOPE Tracker. And very similar to Google, it'll automatically prioritize your answers based upon what pages and sites were found to be most useful for previous users. NCOPE also hosts live training periodically to demonstrate how to take advantage and harness the power of NCOPE Tracker. If you go to About NCOPE, you'll see Events, and you can simply click on Events to see upcoming training opportunities and if any NCOPE Tracker focused events and training will be occurring in the near future. And often, the NCOPE staff receives a lot of inquiries that aren't related to just the NCOPE Tracker system, but residency in general. On January 1st of 2020, we rolled out our new website with extensive updates. If you hover over Residency and Professional Experiences, you can find information that is relevant depending on your user type, directors, mentors, administrators, current residents or future residents. And if you click on that option, it will automatically filter and give you a menu that contains information that's only relevant to these individuals. Plus, general resources that are useful for everyone, like the residency standards, what is competency-based education, program types, roles and responsibilities, legal issues, and even the policy and procedure manual. That's all there too. If we go ahead and select residency program tracks and types, we even have the opportunity to expand info to learn about orthotic single discipline residency. Just click on it and it'll provide you with valuable information that relates back to pursuing a residency program there. Last but not least, I mentioned there's a time and a place to contact NCOPE. How do we do that? Just click Contact NCOPE. It'll be listed either at the top right-hand side of your screen or all the way at the bottom. These links will take you to the exact same contact page. And you'll see that it asks you for relevant questions. If you're a resident, a mentor, a director, or you want to host a residency program, anything that has to do with residency, please select residency programs and other professional experiences. That way you can be certain you're talking to the individuals who actually know the information relevant to you, a residency stakeholder. Also, below that form, you'll see we have our mailing address, as periodically you do need to send things to us, like paper copies of transcripts, and also our direct phone number, if you wish to give us a call during normal business hours. And last but not least, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm Chris Robinson, and I serve as NCOPE's Clinical Resource Director. My direct email address, well, it's listed right here. Thank you very much for your time, and On behalf of the NCOPE staff and our board of directors, we sincerely hope that you find NCOPE Tracker to be useful in the delivery of the second half of your orthotist prosthetist education.